Chapter 2 of Book 12 of Les Misérables, Volume 4, by Victor Hugo. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Les Misérables, Volume 4, by Victor Hugo. Translated by Isabel Florence HAPGOOD. Book 12. Corinth. Chapter 2. Preliminary Gaieties. L'Aigle des Meaux, as the reader knows, lived more with Joly than elsewhere. He had a lodging, as a bird has one in a branch. The two friends lived together, ate together, slept together. They had everything in common, even Musichetta, to some extent. They were what the subordinate monks who accompany monks are called, bini. On the morning of the 5th of June, they went to Corinth to breakfast. Joly, who was all stuffed up, had a catarrh, which L'Aigle was beginning to share. L'aigle's coat was threadbare, but Joly was well dressed. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning when they opened the door of Corinth. They ascended to the first floor. Matelote and Gibelotte received them. "Oysters, cheese, and ham," said L'Aigle. And they seated themselves at a table. The wine shop was empty. There was no one there but themselves. Gibelotte, knowing Joly and L'Aigle, set a bottle of wine on the table. While they were busy with their first oysters, a head appeared at the hatchway of the staircase, and a voice said: "I am passing by. I smell from the street a delicious odour of Brie cheese. I enter." It was Grantaire. Grantaire took a stool and drew up to the table. At the sight of Grantaire, Gibelotte placed 2 bottles of wine on the table. That made 3. "Are you going to drink those 2 bottles?" L'Aigle inquired of Grantaire. Grantaire replied: "All are ingenious. Thou alone art ingenious. 2 bottles never yet astonished a man." The others had begun by eating. Grantaire began by drinking. Half a bottle was rapidly gulped down. "So you have a hole in your stomach," began L'Aigle again. "You have one in your elbow," said Grantaire. And after having emptied his glass, he added: "Ah, by the way, L'Aigle of the funeral oration, your coat is old." "I should hope so," retorted L'Aigle. "That's why we get on well together, my coat and I. It has acquired all my folds. It does not bind me anywhere. It is moulded on my deformities. It falls in with all my movements. I am only conscious of it because it keeps me warm. Old coats are just like old friends." "That's true," ejaculated Joly, striking into the dialogue. "An old goat is an old habit." "Especially in the mouth of a man whose head is stuffed up," said Grantaire. "Grantaire," demanded L'Aigle, "have you just come from the boulevard?" "No. We have just seen the head of the procession pass, Joly and I." "It's a marvellous sight," said Joly. "How quiet this street is!" exclaimed L'Aigle. "Who would suspect that Paris was turned upside down? How plainly it is to be seen that in former days there were nothing but convents here, in this neighbourhood. Dubrulle and Sauval gave a list of them, and so does the Abbé Lebeuf. They were all round here. They fairly swarmed, booted and barefooted, shaven, bearded, grey, black, white, Franciscans, Minims, Capuchins, Carmelites, little Augustines, great Augustines, old Augustines. There was no end of them." "Don't let's talk of monks," interrupted Grantaire. "It makes one want to scratch one's self." Then he exclaimed: "Bouh! I've just swallowed a bad oyster. Now hypochondria is taking possession of me again. The oysters are spoiled, the servants are ugly. I hate the human race. I just passed through the Rue Richelieu in front of the big public library. That pile of oyster shells which is called a library is disgusting even to think of. What paper, what ink, what scrawling! And all that has been written! What rascal was it who said that man was a featherless biped? And then I met a pretty girl of my acquaintance, who is as beautiful as the spring, worthy to be called Floréal, and who is delighted, enraptured, as happy as the angels, because a wretch yesterday, a frightful banker all spotted with smallpox, deigned to take a fancy to her. Alas! woman keeps on the watch for a protector as much as for a lover. Cats chase mice as well as birds. 2 months ago that young woman was virtuous in an attic. She adjusted little brass rings in the eyelet holes of corsets. What do you call it? She sewed. She had a camp bed. She dwelt beside a pot of flowers. She was contented. Now here she is, a bankeress. This transformation took place last night. I met the victim this morning in high spirits. The hideous point about it is, that the jade is as pretty today as she was yesterday. Her financier did not show in her face. Roses have this advantage or disadvantage over women, that the traces left upon them by caterpillars are visible. Ah, there is no morality on earth. I call to witness the myrtle, the symbol of love; the laurel, the symbol of air; the olive, that ninny, the symbol of peace; the apple tree, which came nearest wrangling Adam with its pips; and the fig tree, the grandfather of petticoats. As for right, do you know what right is? The Gauls covet Clusium, Rome protects Clusium, and demands what wrong Clusium has done to them. Brennus answers, the wrong that Alba did to you, the wrong that Fidenæ did to you, the wrong that the Eques, the Volsci, and the Sabines have done to you. They were your neighbors. The Clusians are ours. We understand neighborliness, just as you do. You have stolen Alba. We shall take Clusium. Rome said, you shall not take Clusium. Brennus took Rome. Then he cried, Vae victis. That is what right is. Ah, what beasts of prey there are in this world! What eagles! It makes my flesh creep. He held out his glass to Joly, who filled it. Then he drank and went on, having hardly been interrupted by this glass of wine, of which no one, not even himself, had taken any notice. Brennus who takes Rome is an eagle. The banker who takes the grisette is an eagle. There is no more modesty in the one case than in the other. So we believe in nothing. There is but one reality. Drink. Whatever your opinion may be in favor of the lean cock, like the canton of Uri, or in favor of the fat cock, like the canton of Glaris, it matters little. Drink. You talk to me of the boulevard, of that procession, etc., etc. Come now, is there going to be another revolution? This poverty of means on the part of the good God astounds me. He has to keep greasing the groove of events every moment. There is a hitch. It won't work. Quick, a revolution. The good God has his hands perpetually black with that cart grease. If I were in his place, I'd be perfectly simple about it. I would not wind up my mechanism every minute. I'd lead the human race in a straightforward way. I'd weave matters mesh by mesh without breaking the thread. I would have no provisional arrangements. I would have no extraordinary repertory. What the rest of you call progress advances by means of two motors, men and events. But, sad to say, from time to time the exceptional becomes necessary. The ordinary troop suffices neither for event nor for men. Among men geniuses are required, among events revolutions. Great accidents are the law. The order of things cannot do without them. And, judging from the apparition of comets, one would be tempted to think that heaven itself finds actors needed for its performance. At the moment when one expects it the least, God placards a meteor on the wall of the firmament. Some queer star turns up, underlined by an enormous tail, and that causes the death of Caesar. Brutus deals him a blow with a knife, and God a blow with a comet. Crac! Behold an aurora borealis! Behold a revolution! Behold a great man! 93 in big letters. Napoleon on guard. The comet of 1811 at the head of the poster. Ah, what a beautiful blue theatre, all studded with unexpected flashes. Boom! Boom! Extraordinary show. Raise your eyes, boobies. Everything is in disorder, the star as well as the drama. Good God! It is too much and not enough. These resources, gathered from exception, seem magnificence and poverty. My friends, Providence has come down to expedients. What does a revolution prove? That God is in a quandary. He effects a coup d'etat because he, God, has not been able to make both ends meet. In fact, this confirms me in my conjectures as to Jehovah's fortune. And when I see so much distress in heaven and on earth, from the bird who has not a grain of millet to myself without 100,000 livres of income, when I see human destiny, which is very badly worn, and even royal destiny, which is threadbare, witness the Prince de Conde hung, when I see winter, which is nothing but a rent in the zenith through which the wind blows, when I see so many rags even in the perfectly new purple of the morning on the crests of the hills, when I see the drops of dew, those mock pearls, when I see the frost, that paste, when I see humanity ripped apart and events patched up, and so many spots on the sun, and so many holes in the moon, when I see so much misery everywhere, I suspect that God is not rich. The appearance exists, it is true, but I feel that he is hard up. He gives a revolution as a tradesman whose money box is empty gives a ball. God must not be judged from appearances. Beneath the gilding of heaven I perceive a poverty-stricken universe. Creation is bankrupt. That is why I am discontented. Here it is the 4th of June. It is almost night. Ever since this morning I have been waiting for daylight to come. It has not come, and I bet that it won't come all day. This is the inexactness of an ill-paid clerk. Yes, everything is badly arranged. Nothing fits anything else. This old world is all warped. I take my stand on the opposition everything goes awry. The universe is a tease. It's like children. Those who want them have none, and those who don't want them have them. Total, I'm vexed. Besides, L'Aigle des Meaux, that bald head offends my sight. It humiliates me to think that I am of the same age as that baldy. However, I criticize, but I do not insult. The universe is what it is. I speak here without evil intent, and to ease my conscience. Receive, Eternal Father, the assurance of my distinguished consideration. Ah, by all the saints of Olympus, and by all the gods of paradise, I was not intended to be a Parisian. That is to say, to rebound forever, like a shuttlecock between two battledores, from the group of the loungers to the group of the roisterers. I was made to be a Turk, watching Oriental houris all day, executing those exquisite Egyptian dances, as sensuous as the dream of a chaste man, or a Beauceron peasant, or a Venetian gentleman surrounded by gentlewomen, or a petty German prince, furnishing the half of a foot soldier to the Germanic Confederation, and occupying his leisure with drying his breeches on his hedge, that is to say, his frontier. Those are the positions for which I was born. Yes, I have said a Turk, and I will not retract. I do not understand how people can habitually take Turks in bad part. Mohammed had his good points, respect for the inventor of seraglios, with oris and paradises, with odalisques. Let us not insult Mohammedism, the only religion which is ornamented with a hen roost. Now, I insist on a drink. The earth is a great piece of stupidity, and it appears that they are going to fight, all those imbeciles, and to break each other's profiles, and to massacre each other in the heart of summer, in the month of June, when they might go off with a creature on their arm to breathe the immense heaps of new mown hay in the meadows. Really, people do commit altogether too many follies. An old broken lantern, which I have just seen at a bric-a-brac merchant's, suggests a reflection to my mind. It is time to enlighten the human race. Yes, behold me sad again. That's what comes of swallowing an oyster and a revolution the wrong way. I am growing melancholy once more. Oh, frightful old world! People strive, turn each other out, prostitute themselves, kill each other, and get used to it." And Grantaire, after this fit of eloquence, had a fit of coughing, which was well earned. "A propos of revolution," said Joly, "it is decidedly aberrant that Marius is in love." "Does any one know with whom?" demanded Laigle. "Do." "No?" "Do, I tell you." "Marius' love affairs!" exclaimed Grantaire. "I can imagine it. Marius is a fog, and he must have found a vapour. Marius is of the race of poets. He who says poet, says fool, madman, Timbraeus Apollo. Marius and his Marie, or his Marion, or his Maria, or his Mariette, they must make a queer pair of lovers. I know just what it is like, ecstasies in which they forget to kiss. Pure on earth, but joined in heaven, they are souls possessed of senses. They lie among the stars." Grantaire was attacking his second bottle, and possibly his second harangue, when a new personage emerged from the square aperture of the stairs. It was a boy less than 10 years of age, ragged, very small, yellow, with an odd phiz, a vivacious eye, an enormous amount of hair, drenched with rain and wearing a contented air. The child, unhesitatingly making his choice among the three, addressed himself to Laigle de Meaux. "Are you Monsieur Bossuet?" "That is my nickname," replied Laigle. "What do you want with me?" "This. A tall blond fellow on the boulevard said to me, 'Do you know Mother Hucheloup?' I said, 'Yes, Rue Chanvrerie.' 'The old man's widow,' he said to me. 'Go there. There you will find M. Bossuet. Tell him from me, A B C.' It's a joke that they're playing on you, isn't it? He gave me 10 sous." "Joly, lend me 10 sous," said Laigle, and turning to Grantaire, "Grantaire, lend me 10 sous." This made 20 sous, which Laigle handed to the lad. "Thank you, sir," said the urchin. "What is your name?" inquired Laigle. "Navet, Gavroche's friend." "Stay with us," said Laigle. "Breakfast with us," said Grantaire. The child replied: "I can't. I belong in the procession. I'm the one to shout 'Down with Polignac!'" And executing a prolonged scrape of his foot behind him, which is the most respectful of all possible salutes, he took his departure. The child gone, Grantaire took the word. "That is the pure bred gamin. There are a great many varieties of the gamin species. The notary's gamin is called 'Skip the gutter.' The cook's gamin is called a scullion. The baker's gamin is called a mitron. The lackey's gamin is called a groom. The marine gamin is called the cabin boy. The soldier's gamin is called the drummer boy. The painter's gamin is called paint grinder. The tradesman's gamin is called an errand boy. The courtesan gamin is called the mignon. The kingly gamin is called the dauphin. The god gamin is called the bambino." In the meantime, Laigle was engaged in reflection. He said half aloud: "A, B, C, that is to say, the burial of Lamarque." "The tall blonde," remarked Grantaire, "is Enjolras, who is sending you a warning." "Shall we go?" ejaculated Bossuet. "It's radig," said Joly. "I have sworn to go through fire, but not through water. I don't want to get a cold." "I shall stay here," said Grantaire. "I prefer a breakfast to a hearse." "Conclusion: we remain," said Laigle. "Well, then, let us drink. Besides, we might miss the funeral without missing the riot." "Ah, the riot! I am with you," cried Joly. Laigle rubbed his hands. "Now we're going to touch up the Revolution of 1830. As a matter of fact, it doesn't hurt the people along the seams." "I don't think much of your Revolution," said Grantaire. "I don't execrate this government. It is the crown tempered by the cotton nightcap. It is a sceptre ending in an umbrella. In fact, I think that to day, with the present weather, Louis Philippe might utilize his royalty in 2 directions. He might extend the tip of the sceptre end against the people, and open the umbrella end against heaven." The room was dark. Large clouds had just finished the extinction of daylight. There was no one in the wine shop or in the street, every one having gone off to "watch events." "Is it midday or midnight?" cried Bossuet. "You can't see your hand before your face. Gibelotte, fetch a light." Grantaire was drinking in a melancholy way. "Enjolras disdains me," he muttered. Enjolras said: "Joly is ill. Grantaire is drunk." It was to Bossuet that he sent Navet. If he had come for me, I would have followed him. So much the worse for Enjolras. I won't go to his funeral. This resolution once arrived at, Bossuet, Joly, and Grantaire did not stir from the wine shop. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the table at which they sat was covered with empty bottles. 2 candles were burning on it, one in a flat copper candlestick which was perfectly green, the other in the neck of a cracked carafe. Grantaire had seduced Joly and Bossuet to wine. Bossuet and Joly had conducted Grantaire back towards cheerfulness. As for Grantaire, he had got beyond wine, that merely moderate inspirer of dreams, ever since midday. Wine enjoys only a conventional popularity with serious drinkers. There is, in fact, in the matter of inebriety, white magic and black magic. Wine is only white magic. Grantaire was a daring drinker of dreams. The blackness of a terrible fit of drunkenness, yawning before him, far from arresting him, attracted him. He had abandoned the bottle and taken to the beer glass. The beer glass is the abyss. Having neither opium nor hashish on hand, and being desirous of filling his brain with twilight, he had had recourse to that fearful mixture of brandy, stout, absinthe, which produces the most terrible of lethargies. It is of these 3 vapours, beer, brandy, and absinthe, that the lead of the soul is composed. They are 3 grooms, the celestial butterfly is drowned in them, and they are formed there in a membranous smoke, vaguely condensed into the wing of the bat, 3 mute furies, nightmare, night, and death, which hover about the slumbering psyche. Grantaire had not yet reached that lamentable phase. Far from it. He was tremendously gay, and Bossuet and Joly retorted. They clinked glasses. Grantaire added to the eccentric accentuation of words and ideas a peculiarity of gesture. He rested his left fist on his knee with dignity, his arm forming a right angle, and, with cravat untied, seated astride a stool, his full glass in his right hand, he hurled solemn words at the big maidservant Matelote. "Let the doors of the palace be thrown open. Let every one be a member of the French Academy, and have the right to embrace Madame Hucheloup. Let us drink." And turning to Madame Hucheloup, he added: "Woman, ancient and consecrated by use, draw near that I may contemplate thee." And Joly exclaimed: "Matelote and Gibelotte, don't give Grantaire anything more to drink. He has already devoured since this morning, in wild prodigality, 2 francs and 95 centimes." And Grantaire began again: "Who has been unhooking the stars without my permission, and putting them on the table, in the guise of candles?" Bossuet, though very drunk, preserved his equanimity. He was seated on the sill of the open window, wetting his back in the falling rain, and gazing at his 2 friends. All at once he heard a tumult behind him, hurried footsteps, cries of "To arms!" He turned round and saw, in the Rue Saint Denis, at the end of the Rue de la Chanvrerie, Enjolras passing, gun in hand, and Gavroche with his pistol, Feuilly with his sword, Courfeyrac with his sword, and Jean Prouvaire with his blunderbuss, Combeferre with his gun, Bahorel with his gun, and the whole armed and stormy rabble which was following them. The Rue de la Chanvrerie was not more than a gunshot long. Bossuet improvised a speaking trumpet from his 2 hands placed around his mouth, and shouted: "Courfeyrac! Courfeyrac! Ho he!" Courfeyrac heard the shout, caught sight of Bossuet, and advanced a few paces into the Rue de la Chanvrerie, shouting: "What do you want?" which crossed a "Where are you going?" "To make a barricade," replied Courfeyrac. "Well, here, this is a good place. Make it here." "That's true, Aigle," said Courfeyrac. And at a signal from Courfeyrac, the mob flung themselves into the Rue de la Chanvrerie. End of Book 12, Chapter 2.